Hey everybody, we are going to be recreating a painting I did of a camping scene. This paper that I'm using is it's watercolor paper. It's handmade paper, and I'll post a link in the description below. But it is, yes, it's thick, but this paper, you could probably pour a gallon of water on it and it will not warp, or it will just take the water abuse. So what you want to do is start kind of with an egg-shaped water, wet on wet in the center. And I had to, because of the paper I'm using, had to put a ton of water, but obviously adjust to the paper that you're using. If you're using the one I'm using, then go ahead and just slop that water on. Then I'm going to just put like a pale blue in the middle. This is a little bit lighter than I think I was really going for in the end. And in the end, I did add more of the blues and the aquas to the center. But if you want to do that now, you can. I'm going to post a picture right now of the painting that I did so that you guys can see the end picture. So you can kind of see what we're going for, which of course it's in the thumbnail as well, but sometimes it's just easier to see when you're in the middle of watching a tutorial. At least I think so. So I added like an aqua bluish color to the sides, and then I have the like a baby blue in the middle, and I'm going to do a little bit more of a darker blue towards the edge, and gradually going into the night sky, which is going to be obviously black. So what's interesting about this one is that I'm not really sure what's going on in the middle. Like, it's, somebody said, oh, it looks like the Milky Way, but it's not. I think it's just the idea that there is a campsite in the middle, so it's giving off this glow in the middle, so the light, the middle of the painting is lighter. So I guess that's what I'm going for here. I actually got it off of I think it was done originally in acrylic. It's one of those paintings that everybody's basically done at some point. And I did this when I first started doing watercolor, so years ago, which is like 3 years ago. It's not that long, but I started doing this about 3 years ago. During lockdown is when I started watercolor. So this was like one of the first paintings I did. And as you can see, I'm adding more color here. I do end up even adding more in the very end when I'm done. So I like this approach because it's easier to add than it is to take away with watercolor. So if it's not as dark as you want or as vibrant, you can add the color. But if it's too vibrant or too much color, then you can't. You have to go the other way around. So I'm just doing some blending. Again, lots of water. It's wet on wet. So wet paper, wet paint helps with the blending. As you can see, the blues and the greens are kind of mixing together, and they will continue to do so. I am going to be framing this with the black night sky, some trees. The bottom's going to be dark, so I'm not too concerned with how well blended it is around the edges there, but you know, it helps to make it a little blended. And then I just took my rag to lighten up the center part here to make it a little bit lighter. In the end, again, I feel like I keep saying that, I do add more color. So it's just one of those things, I was looking at it and it looked darker than I think I thought it was going to be. Does that make sense? I'm sure you guys, if you've ever painted before, have had that where you're like, oh, that's too dark. And then you're done. You're like, wait, there's like no color at all. So I'm just putting more blues and greens. Keep doing this until you get to the consistency you want. Again, I'll put the picture up one more time so you can see. And you don't have to do blues and greens. Do purples and oranges, like whatever you want. I mean, this is definitely more of a looser watercolor style. So have fun with it. If you like the blues and the aquas, then go for it. If not, then do your own thing. So now I'm going to add the black. Watch this. How fun. This is why I love watercolor. It's like magic. So I obviously have my paper quite wet, so it's really pulling that black in. The problem with this paper though, as opposed to like what I usually use is Arches paper. So I use either cold press, whatever you're using, cold press, hard press, doesn't matter. It holds color a lot better than this paper. So that's the downside of this paper. If you want it to be really black, then you really have to keep going back and adding layers and layers and layers. It doesn't, it's such a thick, it's almost like a cotton fabric. It just absorbs the paint. So I didn't care about it being that black. I wanted to go with a little bit of a lighter, so I only did one layer of the black, and again, you might not even be using this paper. So just go with your desires of what you want. Your heart's desire. Again, black frame. It almost looks like an arch. It's not what we're doing, but it looks like an arch. And then I'm adding a little bit more blue to help blend the two together. And then I'm going to just keep doing this until it comes to the point that I want. How are you guys doing? Is it getting cold where you are? It's getting cooler here. We're in Phoenix. So cooler for us means we are no longer miserably complaining hot. That's like pretty much over. I mean, we have a couple of hot days here and there, but our evenings are starting to cool down. Our mornings feel cooler. Like, you can walk outside, it feels comfortable. It's nice. We are going into the season. This is the reason why everybody lives here, is because of the next few months coming up until March, April. It is heaven here. It's such beautiful, beautiful weather. So I'm excited. We get to finally go outside. I know everybody's like, oh no, summer's over. Time to have cabin fever, when it's like the opposite for us. It's really weird. It's weird to be kind of opposite from what the rest of the world or rest of the country is doing. So anyways, how's the weather there? Now we can go camping because now it's cooling down. So I'm doing this camping picture. The story with this is this lady on my Etsy saw the original painting on my Facebook page, where I keep all of my paintings. So if you're on my Etsy, what you see on my Etsy is what's available. If you are on my Facebook page, then you'll see albums with stuff that's sold, that's already gone. But it's nice because you can see some of the work I've done in the past. And she wanted this painting, and I didn't have it anymore. Of course, it's sold. And so I offered to recreate it for her. So I decided to do a tutorial. It's wet on wet. What you saw was the shape of the tent that I was doing, am doing here. And because it's water, I know you can't see the shape, so that was the shape I'm going for. Do whatever shape you want, tent. This is kind of your, I guess, traditional looking tent. And then I did the whole thing in wet, the shape, the whole thing. And then I'm adding a yellow around the edges, and then leaving the inside blank. And because of that, it's kind of making it look like it's glowing from within. And there you go. You know, and now that I'm looking at it, those look like footsteps, but it wasn't. I said spilled black paint. It wasn't. It was actually on my hand. Another great thing with paper is I just took the wet cloth and literally scrubbed the paper, and the paper was totally fine. And I got most of it up. I honestly didn't have to lift up that paint because this whole thing is going to be black anyways, but I didn't want to keep spreading that everywhere and get it somewhere I didn't want to, so I cleaned it up. So if you work fast enough, you can get most of it up. If it was a different kind of paper, I wouldn't have been able to lift it that well, and of course I don't need to lift it, and it lifts. So that's just the way things work, right? If I wanted to lift, it wouldn't, because I don't need it to, it will. So now I'm just kind of blending the oranges and yellows, so it goes from like an orange to yellow to just kind of empty space in the middle that gives that glowing look, and then a really darker orange on the very edges of the tent. And it gives us this really nice glow when you're done with the painting. Like, you could tell they either have like a light on or something. Obviously, hopefully you don't have a fire on inside your tent. So I let it dry a little bit. Now I'm putting in my trees. I'm going to give it this perspective of looking up at the trees. In order to do that, I'm doing the trees all kind of pointing towards the center, but it's going to be really subtle. So you can go really extreme like the picture I showed as an example, or you can do more subtle like I am. But it kind of gives you this illusion that, you know, you're looking at the campsite kind of thing. You're at level, you're looking up, you see this beautiful night sky. I didn't let my painting completely dry because My main concern was the center part being dry, where the tops of the trees are. I didn't care about the bottom part because I'm going to be adding the branches to it, and I was like, you know what, the water will help it turn into branch. And if you look at those middle trees, it does. It's like you drew a line and the water literally turned it into a tree for you. Thanks, water. So now I'm just adding my branches. I'm going to speed this up because this part can get kind of boring, because that's all I'm doing is just doing kind of like a swoopy, zigzaggy for the branches. You can obviously make it a little bit more detailed if you want, but again, loose watercolor, we're not really worried about details. And it's nighttime, so you don't really see much color. It's a silhouette up against the night sky. And I'm going to be doing this kind of almost like the whole bottom part's going to be black, which you can kind of tell is what I'm going for here. I think you can tell. But anyways, you know there's different types of trees in the forest, right? I know. You know what? I apologize, because of course you do. I mean, why? It's not like I'm talking to 5-year-olds. If 5-year-olds probably know that. So anyways, if you want to do different shape branches, you can. That was kind of my point I was trying to make before I insulted everybody watching this video. And then now that I got my trees in, I'm just filling in the whole bottom part with black. All the way to the tent, as you can see. This is what's great about this painting. Like, this bottom half, 0 skills needed, just literally covered up with black. And I'm trying to do as concentrated of a black as I can, because like I said, I'm not adding layers, and I'm trying to keep it true to the original, which didn't have it either. Like I said, this lady wanted the original, so new me would have added probably more black layers to make it a lot more vibrant, but because I was really trying to duplicate my old painting, I didn't do that. So it's a personal choice, whatever you want to do. With this paper, if you want it blacker, you really have to go with a lot of black paint. And if you're not using Dr. P.H. Martin, which is, as you guys know, what I use mostly, you really have to keep adding the layers. Okay, so this next part, I apologize, my camera didn't record. So there's about 5 minutes of the tutorial that's not there, and as you can see, I was waiting for the paint to dry, and I thought I hit record, and it didn't record. So what I did is I took my bleed proof white, watered it down a little bit, and I'm adding the whites to the trees. And fortunately here, I didn't miss the whole part of the tutorial, so at least you get to still see what I'm doing, and it's kind of nice because now you're not going to be bored with watching me do all these trees. But I'm taking a bleed proof white, a little bit watered down, and the idea is the light from the campsite is glowing up on the trees. So that means the trees that are closer to the campsite will have more white, and the ones further away will have less white. And I'm just kind of painting the trunks here to try to make it look like the light's glowing. You can add a little bit of like the orange. I did at some point, and you can't really see it from here, but oh, I'm doing it right now. Look at that. You can't really tell when you look up close. You can, but you can't really tell. But the idea, again, repeating myself tonight, is the glow from the campsite on the tree. So I added a little bit of the yellow from the trees because I wanted to give it that like the lights being cast onto the tree trunks. And I'm only doing it on the ones closest to the campsite. And then the other thing that you didn't see me do was I added some silhouettes in the tent. So it's really, really light. You can't really see it. It's because the idea is that it's just barely the silhouettes that you can just catch a little bit from the light. And what I did is I just did a really watered down black and did kind of the shape of 2 people on the right and a dog on the left. And it's hard to see from this point. I got a little bit closer here, so you might be able to see it now. Of course, I just moved the paper out of the way so you can't. So I did add those silhouettes, excuse me. But you don't have to if you don't want to, or if you're doing this for yourself. Let's say you have 3 kids, 2 kids, no kids, it's just you that likes to camp. Just put your silhouette, whatever it is. Make this personal. And then I'm taking the bleed proof white, I'm adding these stars to it. Of course, you gotta have stars. And as you can see, remember what I said, the black really fades. It's this paper. This paper does not hold color well. So the black really faded. I'm okay with it. In the end, after the painting was done, I did, per the request of the person who ordered this, add more blues to that center. And I agree, I needed it. I needed a little bit more of that blue in the aqua to match the original painting. This is a little too glowy for me. It looks like a UFO landed or something. Hey, maybe I'll add a UFO to it. Make it really interesting. And now I am adding the tent door. Is that what you call it? The little flap door thingy. You got to be able to get into the tent, right? And I'm going to do that, and I'm going to also add the kind of like the seams to the tent. I'm just using black, and I'm using a really thin brush. So if you guys struggle with detail stuff, a lot of times it's your brush. The Princeton brush size 18/0 is what I'm using here. I will link it in the comments, but I do recommend having this brush in your tools, your box of tools. What is it called? What is wrong with me? I don't know. I cannot do the words today. But anyways, I do recommend having that in your bag of tricks. There you go. It really makes life easier with the fine lines. I use it. I got this brush specifically because of my miniature paintings. So yeah, I use this brush just for the miniatures, but it's great for the detail stuff. So when you guys see me do, like, especially my pet portraits, the furs and stuff, I don't use this brush the whole time because this brush is really that small. But there's some like details in the eyes when I do those lines, like the lines in your iris and stuff. This is the brush for it. Can you guys see? It's like almost like 3 little bristles, and it'll make your life easier. So anyways, this is the painting. I added my little seams there. Really easy, right? I thought this was an easy one. So hopefully you guys find it easy too. I definitely think this is going to go in the bucket of beginner level paintings. And excuse me, I have a frog in my throat today. Where did that saying come from? Frog in your throat. Like, did somebody actually swallow a frog? I'm going to have to look that up now. But here it is. I'm just adding some details now. It's good that this is over because I really do have to, I'm choking on air here. I'm just kind of fixing the bottom of this tent so it looks like it's not floating in the air there. But that's pretty much it. And if you want to add shooting stars or whatever it is to make it more you, go ahead. This is definitely one of the easier ones. It's a forgiving painting because of all the black, so you can make mistakes and go over it pretty easily and get it fixed. But do me a favor, if you have any special requests, please leave it in the comments. If you did give this one a try, let me know if you liked it, if you had fun with it. But don't forget to hit like and subscribe.